time to armor up and level out. Listen up and hear what we're about.
Welcome back to Armor Radio. Josh here with our fearless leader, Dusty. Dusty, welcome.
Hey, man. Good to be here.
Today's guest, the Honorable Chad Hatmaker. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Man, thanks for taking time to come talk to us.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
We're on our decades of fitness.
Yep.
We've traveled through, a few decades now. Where do we start at? 30s?
30s.
Went 40s,
Yep.
and Dusty and I can talk pretty significantly about both of those, but you decided to grace us with your presence.
We thought we should bring an expert in for the 50s.
That's right.
The old guy.
No,
Yeah.
not old at all.
Right.
In fact, when Dusty told me that you were going to be our guy, I couldn't believe it. So I'll give you that. That's,
I thought you looked younger, man.
You're very kind.
You
I
do.
appreciate that.
Tell me a little bit about yourself before we get too far into it. What is it that you do? Who are you? So on and so forth. How long have you been training with us?
So I'm an attorney here in Knoxville. I do a lot of employment law and commercial litigation, which can involve going to court, trials, that kind of thing. It can involve a lot of just sitting at a desk as well, which is real relevant to my fitness journey. My wife Leslie and I have 3 kids, and one of whom is in Knoxville, and one of whom in Charlotte, one of whom is in Memphis, and then I have 2 grandchildren who are in Charlotte.
Okay. How long have you been practicing law?
And now I am kind of feeling old. This is my 30th year.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, I practiced my first 3 years in Atlanta, and then I was in 94 to 97, and moved back here in 97, and been here ever since.
And because it's very relevant to what we're talking about today, how old are you?
I am 54.
54, okay. And you mentioned that the sitting and kind of part of your job is what brought you to us.
Yeah, it's
Can you
sort of.
explain that?
I can explain that. So the sitting, now they say sitting is the new smoking. I mean, at least
Yeah.
you see that slogan.
Yeah.
And I can say that it definitely took a toll on my body. So I'll back up a little bit. It was. Do you like country music at all? Here's the reason I ask. There's a Garth Brooks song in which he has a line, and he's talking about rodeo, but he says, "I'm much too young to feel this damn old."
Okay. Yeah.
And that was me 15 years ago. I was 39, and I had been effectively sitting for the last 15 years. The 30s were the decade of my fitness that I'd like to do over. I wouldn't do anything else over in my life, but I would do that over because I just punted. I didn't do anything from a fitness standpoint.
What do you think contributed to that? Was it like kids being young, like your job? Like what were the factors there, you think?
All of those. So you're raising my kids, and as I said, I wouldn't do any of that over.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
just make some time, be it early mornings or late at night, for fitness. So
Yeah.
You're busy at work.
It wasn't a high priority.
Yes, exactly, and it was a no priority. And I did though, but I was just naive enough to think I'm still in decent shape. So I was doing a decent amount of running, I say decent, 3 or 4 miles a week. And then all of a sudden one day, this is the Garth Brooks reference, I go to put on my socks and my back locks up. Like I can't move. And of course, again, this is 15 years ago, and I go for an MRI, that's clean, and they give me some muscle relaxers, and I sit in the bed for 3 days. Because again, don't move, rest your back. That was the conventional wisdom at that point. Fast forward 5 or 6 months later, and I went to a PT in town who did wonders for me and dealt with a lot of runners. And he has me get on a table, and he's like, "Let me see your legs." And I remember he said, "Your legs," probably you can't tell this to every client, right? But he says, "Your legs are so stiff, we could put a rubber band on them and use it like a slingshot."
Whoa.
And I think he was only partially joking. So the point being that my hip flexors had just totally atrophied. I mean, they had locked up. Having low back problems, got a lot of help from them, but that was mainly AIS, active isolated stretching, which helped a lot
Yeah.
and improved a lot. But still, I was now, right, from not using these muscles, sort of weak, and their back could go out at any time. You bend over to pick up your dog, and
Because your fitness at that time was running and nothing else.
No strength training.
no strength training at all. And then after the injury, I stopped running, so I was walking. This is better than nothing, but I was doing some walking, but not strong. I finally hit a point where I was like, I've got to be able to do something more. So I started training at a really basic level, a couple, 3 times a week, and that helped. But I was still prone to long periods of sitting, and your back hurts for days on end. So I went to John Lavelle, obviously friend of everyone here.
So this was like over a course of 10 years?
Yes, exactly right. It's from 39 to 49. I went probably 7 years of just, I can walk and I can do some basic sort of yoga stretches, and there's certainly a place for that. But I didn't strengthen.
Yeah.
So I was so prone to your back's going to be hurt again, and your wife wants you to move furniture around the house, and you do that, and your back hurts again. So I go to John Lavelle at 49, and this is now after 2 or 3 years of some what I would call basic strength training, which definitely helped.
Basic strength training is machines, is it free weights, is it with a coach?
It went to a coach who had designed a pretty basic plan,
Okay.
and I followed that. It was predominantly with free weights,
Okay.
and it was a good plan. I think when I first saw Dusty, I was like, I thought I was in good shape, and he said, "Well, I mean, maybe you were for the general public, but not for what we do at Armor Gym."
Something Dusty would say.
Exactly. I mean, he was polite when he said it, but that's what he said. So Dr. Lavelle says he looked at some things. He said, well, you've got an injury probably from when you played high school sports called a pars fracture.
Oh, okay.
And he said, it's coming back to you later in life, which is common. And I can give you some treatment, but you really need to go see this guy named Dusty Holden. And he owns, and he said, a CrossFit gym. And I've told him this multiple times. I said, there's not a chance I'm going to a CrossFit gym. I'm a lawyer. I'm not going to do that. And he goes, trust me, it'll be fine. It'll be good. It's personal training. And I said, give me his card.
Okay.
And that was a big decision for me because one of the great things y'all do in addition to the training and the plans is for a lot of people, they're not going to work out without you all sort of the motivation, the driving. For me, that wasn't as important because I can kind of do it on my own as far as the will to do it.
Yep.
It's just knowing what to do. So I called, and this is again at 49, and I go in, and Dusty he was like, come in for evaluation. I said, do I need to wear workout clothes? He's like, nah, just, don't wear a suit, just wear, what you would wear. So I'm wearing probably something like this, khakis and a golf shirt. And I walk in, and he says, all right, let me see you raise your arms. Now, so in addition to the back, I also had from years of sitting at a desk, hunched over at a computer monitor like this, so much issues with the traps. He was like, let me see you raise your arms over your head. Well, today, right, I can do that.
Yeah.
But back then, it was probably more like that, maybe. It wasn't a full extension. It was probably like this. Yeah. He said, okay. And he said, and then it was like, get in the floor and move your leg and move this leg. And he was like, okay, I need to see you once a week. Okay. And then that became, for a lot of reasons, he was training one of my friends who came in a month after me. He was training him 2 days a week. I started going 2 days a week, and it's evolved into 3 days a week, and I plan my schedule around it to the extent that I can.
So let's back up a little bit of that. There's a ton of good information there. So you started doing some sort of resistance training with free weights. You were how old?
Before you guys, 46.
46. So 46, you started,
Right.
And that was a few days a week?
That was generally 3 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then at 49, met Dusty. Dusty did an assessment. There was some things that were lacking.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
We could clean up some corners.
Yep.
So you had from 46 to 49, and then, like, using your words, it's kind of like you started for real.
That's right.
About
Yep.
49, and then you're 53.
54.
54, okay. So now take us through what happened when you met Dusty. What was the change in the program? So what were you doing, and then what did Dusty change?
I would say the one comforting thing is some of the things I did with him, I was already doing on my own, like a goblet squat. So the guy that I had met with that time who gave me the basic plan had some good functions, or some good aspects, and I would say it was somewhat functional.
Yeah.
The biggest thing with Dusty would be it was a lot more functional, and where I was doing basically no cardio because it's not a lot of fun, right? There's not, if anybody ever comes in here and goes, I love cardio, you're probably a little worried about spending the rest of the time with them.
Right.
So my cardio would be, I'd do some burpees, maybe one set, which, I mean, it's better than nothing. Maybe 10 burpees might be the cardio. I'm trying to think.
You really don't like cardio.
Yeah, well, back then, yeah. Now it's a little different
Yeah,
philosophy.
okay.
But I wasn't doing much cardio. So the changes were a lot more functional and much more cardio. And so when I say a lot more functional, I remember the first session, and I remember he was towards the end. He was like, "Okay, so just I'm going to get this box, and it's at 20-inch height." And I think it was a goblet position. He was like, "Take this kettlebell, and you're going to step up. Just hold it in a goblet, and you're going to step up." And I think it was like 3 sets, probably 10 on each side. I don't remember the numbers. That was probably all that it was towards the end. Well, I had never done anything like that.
Okay.
As far as fitness,
Yeah.
That's such a functional movement, but I didn't think about that, right? Stepping up with weight in your hand.
Yeah.
So I remember that thinking, oh, this is different. And I also remember thinking, that's it? That's all it's going to be? And then I remember I completed the first set, and I go to do the second set, and I'm like, oh my gosh, when are we going to get done with this? When is that hour? Is that going to end?
The kettlebell, I was like, I thought you were going to say box jump, and I'm like, that's day one.
Yeah, I might have left.
So I'm like, dude,
I might have left for him in day
well,
one.
you said that was for real. Okay, Dusty,
Yeah.
what did you think the first time you met Chad? Like, what were you like? We have to do X. You've been training, been running, been to a PT. So there's a lot of paved road.
Yeah.
Before you even met Chad.
Yeah.
So what was your first thought going in?
Well, I think that's part of why we do the assessment is to see how things kind of align with what we do, And so when somebody says, "Yeah, I've been training 2 times a week or whatever, and I'm doing some resistance training," then through the assessment you can start to see exactly how somebody moves, and we're not talking about really anything complicated like, let me see you squat. It's put your hands over your head, let's see you hinge down and can touch your toes. Just watching somebody move, you can get a pretty good idea of how you can help them. So I think with him, he was dealing with some different pain. If I recall, you at that time did you come with me some like an upper trap or like neck pain?
Yep.
And so, the first thing is you attack the area that's causing the most pain.
Of course. Triage. Yeah.
And really, you do it to get the person some relief, but also once they start to get relief, you're going to get more buy-in. So then it's like you can change and maneuver the program around to really help progress them to a place that they didn't even know that they could go. Yeah. So with him it was like, all right, let's get you out of pain, and then let's see kind of where you want this thing to go. And so that's how it goes from 1 day a week to 2 days a week, and now he's starting to do things that he's never done before, or hasn't done, maybe ever, or since high school or whatever when he was playing sports. Yeah. And at this point in his life, he might have thought those days were behind him. So,
Chad, did you think those days were behind you when you started doing some stuff like that?
For sure. I mean, no question. And that's the craziest thing about it. And I said recently, I'm 54. I mean, I'll be 55 in the fall, and I'm in as good a shape now. It's the best shape I've been in since I was in high school. And
that's big.
Yeah, and then obviously I'm a lot younger, so you could do so much more things. But frankly, from a total body strength standpoint, I'm in better shape now than I was in high school for a number of reasons. Think about, again, that was I'm having to do the math on the fly. 38, I'm getting old. 38 years ago, so the training programs were a lot different. And I mean, and I was a football and baseball guy, and that meant in football you did bench press, and you did some cosmetic work, and you did some back squats, and that's all you did. We didn't even deadlift at my high school. The first time I ever deadlifted was with him.
I
So
think
you
too.
deadlifted, you were 49?
I think I remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah.
And I think too, you know, the big thing is when you start introducing new movements, like he's a person that's never deadlifted, and here they are, late 40s, early 50s. It can be really, really scary, and he doesn't have time to be injured, you know.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. So you really start to unlock some confidence
Yeah.
and really open up all these new possibilities that, again, he thought, oh, those days, you know, are behind me. And I remember one of the things about you were, you know, once I don't know how long it had been, not long, couple months, you started feeling like so good that I don't know how many people you've sent to me over the years, but he was telling a lot of people, you know, which,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, is very common when somebody like has a life-changing experience. What do you want to do?
You tell everybody.
You want to share it with people. So, you know, he started doing that, and you know, and now at this point in time, he's got how many of your like close friends? 6, 7
Yeah,
of them?
that'd be about right.
Yeah, there's probably 7 of them that train together, and so
That's awesome.
each one of them kind of came in the very similar stages in life,
Yeah.
you know, and I would say very similar, even stories, like had not been doing a whole lot,
Right.
you know, up to that point, and now I would almost say every single one of them is in, you know, the best shape that they've been in a long, long time, probably since maybe their 20s.
Yeah.
So I don't think his path has been that different, you know, than say a common, you know, 50-year-old person. That's why I thought you'd be a great person to come in and talk about it. Because I think it's easy in your 50s, you start to think like, wow, you know, am I like, is this halftime, you
Right.
know? And at halftime, what do? Do you get a better game plan? Or do you say,
That's a good question.
oh man, this thing's over, you know, and
That's a great
it's all, you know, just kind of downhill from here. And so I think you, you know, have chosen to like look at halftime and make adjustments, you know, for what the second half
Yeah.
is going to look like. And probably you've set yourself up for a second half that maybe, you know, as strong or stronger than parts of the first half, you know.
I like the halftime. I like thinking about it like that.
It's a
But
good
I also
analogy.
think that, you know, when you're talking about how you progress, like getting confronted with a movement that has been just villainized like the deadlift when you're almost 50 is, I mean, we have blowback when people are 20.
Oh, yeah.
So when you catch it then, is it because Dusty is doctor recommended that you're like, okay, fine, I'll do this? Or is it because of something else that you're like, okay, I'll do this? Because like I said, you get a lot of blowback.
That's a great question. And I will tell you, and I probably have told Dusty, but maybe I didn't. As he said, it was probably pretty early on, probably first couple months. He's like, hey, we're going to introduce the deadlift, which I had never done. And then we're going to do some back squats, which I had done, but certainly not since college. And I remember thinking, man, I've got a back injury, right? Why are we doing these
Sounds like the
lifts?
worst thing.
Yeah, I'm like,
Well-
who is this guy? But I knew. So to answer your question, the fact that he was doctor recommended helped, but really by then we're a couple months in. We'd built a rapport. I trusted him.
Yeah.
Just like when my clients hire me, they trust me. They're going to follow my advice. I trusted him, and I was like, you know what? This guy, he knows what he's talking about. We're going to see. And of course, he does know what he's talking about, and it was right. But so yeah, I trusted him. We'd built that bond.
So speaking that way, it's Dusty, you knew enough, and maybe you would change this per person or however it was, but you had you developed a relationship before you had the big ask.
Oh,
But then
100%.
secondarily, you went in humble enough to giving
and
yourself
open-minded,
over.
oh,
I mean, that's a big
open-minded to
deal.
like I'll try some things that I
That's a
haven't.
big deal.
Well, and I think it's important to say too. When we say we introduce a deadlift, I think it's important for the listeners to know that like we didn't just load up a bar and start doing conventional deadlifts. I think I probably started him with some like good mornings, banded good mornings,
sure.
or really
So started hinging.
Yeah,
Not
really
even
just
a bar.
introducing a hinge pattern. Because if you're like at that stage of life and you've never done that, it's going to take a little bit for us to be able to get that movement pattern the way that it should be, and for him to understand exactly what he's trying to do.
Especially somebody who may have been versed in squatting, they're
Right.
probably going to want to squat everything.
Oh, and
They're not gonna wanna
I would
hinge
say
anything.
more times than not, that's exactly what you you run into. So we started very, very low level and basic, and then we just kind of gradually progressed. So it might have went from like a good morning type movement to like a kettlebell deadlift or dumbbell deadlift or something like that.
Put it
And
on
then
risers.
yes, and then I think we probably did some like more of like an RDL out of a rack.
Yep, top down.
Yep.
Yep.
To where we could really just focus on, all right, this is the way it's supposed to feel at the top, and now let's
This is a hinge
back it
versus a
up.
Squat.
Yep. So we just took a pretty strategic approach, just making sure that he was comfortable each time with the movement and what we were trying to do. Because again, I had built some rapport, I had built some trust. The last thing I wanted to do was, lose any of that.
Sure.
Because I had a good, strong buy-in.
Now, if Chad had have come to you, let's say 10 years before, do you adjust the way that you would have coached that athlete?
Probably not too much. Like
What about 20 years?
Probably not too
Close
much.
to the same? Okay.
I think his 39 and 49 would have probably exactly the same.
Okay.
Because of all the different factors that he had going on in life at that point. But at 29, I would have probably just he would have probably been really more eager to try to do more things. Like a kettlebell deadlift, he'd have been like,
So you would have been
what the heck is this,
more
man?
calming him down.
Right. I'd be like,
Yeah.
wait a minute,
Okay.
dude. Let's
Yeah.
like pull the reins back here a little bit, and
Yeah.
let's make sure we got this right. I mean, that's exactly how I'm coaching my high school baseball players this morning, and that's what we're doing. It's like we don't need more weight on the bar.
So it speaks a lot about it differs by the degree, not the scope. Everybody
Exactly.
needs to be able to pick something up off the ground, but maybe they don't need to be able to pick up 900 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What have you noticed from going from just running to training the way that Dusty has you training today?
I mean, it is night and day.
Yeah.
Just the overall strength. And so let me clarify that. Anybody that knows me, I'm not going to set any records. So let's set the record straight on that. I'm not going to win the world's strongest man, even at any age. But the overall strength for me is through the roof compared to what it was. I was always, and I would say you probably have seen this. So in high school, I was always a strong chest and shoulders guy.
Yeah.
So again, back in the Stone Ages, I was a bench 330 kind of guy. So I could do that.
That's great.
Legs, not so much on that part.
Okay.
And that's still true, although stronger certainly, but core strength, and you hear so much about that. That's a term that's out there. You got to have a strong core. You got to engage your core. Well, what does that mean? Well, a lot of people think that means do some crunches, and that's part of it, but as you all know, that's just what really the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to it. So the core strength is just through the roof. It's night and day from where it was. The hinging, when you all talked about hinging, and I remember in your description of how we got to the deadlift, I think we did every single one of those progressions before we got to it. And he would be like, hinge your hips, and I would be looking at him like, well, I'm trying to hinge my hips. What does that mean? Well, you're bending over. I need you to hinge your hips. I'm like, I'm bending it. No, you're bending over. I need you to hinge. Sure. So the ability to do that, because I had lost that ability. I mean, that's just the reality of it. 25 years of mainly being in a sedentary job,
Yeah.
I had lost the ability to hinge my hips. I mean, sometimes now when we deadlift, I think about it, I'm like, I can move my hips back and I don't feel like it's a chore to do it.
I think it's important to know that all of this stuff that you're saying didn't start to happen really until you were 49 years old.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show you that with training, you have to work. You've been doing it. I see
Right.
you every single day.
Right.
That's a lot of work. But if you really get down to it, how many hours do you spend fitnessing each week? Really?
Yeah. So if we separate the mobility, because as you know, I do the mobility piece, which is very important, as you all know. But we train on average, we train 3 days a week together, and that's an hour. And then I usually do, if you average it, I'm probably 3.5. Sometimes on a Saturday, sometimes Dusty and I'll train together. Sometimes I'll do my own thing. I'll always take a walk or something just to get some sort of active rest day. So
if
you're
said
talking
7.
if you throw the mobility in on top, then you would be talking probably a total of 6, because really 5.5.
68 hours in a week, you're not even at 10%.
That's right.
You've seen a gigantic improvement in quality.
And you're talking
Absolutely.
about somebody who's, he's busy.
Yeah.
Your work days are how
They're-
long?
So if it's it's usually you're in before 8 and you're leaving the office between 6 and 6:30.
Yeah.
So it's a long
long
day.
work days.
Yeah.
Has it made you better at that?
I think it has.
Okay.
I think it has. I think it's done in 2 ways. I think it's helped the mental side of it, for sure.
Do you mean mental like you're sharper, or do you mean mental like you can endure?
I would say definitely endure, and the stress doesn't get to you as much. It's still there. I mean, it's not like, oh, the stress goes away, but you can handle it better.
You
In
have
part,
an outlet. You have an outlet.
Yeah.
Basically coming, every other day.
That's right.
Of where you can kind of like
That's
shut
right.
it all off.
yeah,
And move your body, and afterwards you like feel good. It kind of sets you up for just to go tackle whatever.
that's
whatever
exactly right.
Life may throw. you
Whatever
away.
life may throw you
Chad,
away.
you said that but you have to be in work before 8 or around 8.
Usually, like today, I got in at 10 to 8.
So
I didn't go to the
make
gym
time for
today.
Fitness
Before that,
before that.
yeah,
That's a big deal.
it's a big deal.
And
So
you actually carve that out of the schedule to make sure that you can be there.
I schedule around it to the extent I can. So, and what I mean by that is if somebody wants to schedule an early morning thing, I mean, I can't can't move a court date around, but other dates, I'm going to, hey, let's do it on a Tuesday or Thursday, because generally I'm a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So yeah, it's part of it, and I'm going to get there,
For the most part,
come
most
heck or high
people-
water.
And here's the thing. How long's it been? 5 years?
Yeah, 5.5.
I cannot recall any time that he's never been there because of work. If he's in town.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can
If
set my
it-
clock till when we come upstairs and it's like mobility
If
time.
he's,
Yeah.
If he's not there, he's on vacation or he's out of town doing something for work. But
Yeah.
If he's in town, he's there.
That's important for people to know that you.
I think
even though you're busy,
he
you're still carving out
prioritizes
that
it.
time.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and the other part of that too was, and I had started this before, a couple years before, but I found I had to do it early morning because it's tough to do it late in the day. It's tough for me. I think.
That's for a lot
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
tough
a
for
lot of people.
tough
The
for
day
me.
gets in the way, then you start to push it out to the side. And,
For sure.
Yeah,
Right.
That happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
You mentioned mobility, and you said that was really important. Was that always really important when you were just running? Did you also do mobility work, or does that come as a recent addition?
It is. So I did not do it when I was running, which was probably part of the problem. There's so much. I was so naive when I look back at it now, but it also was I would say the quote literature that was out there to the general public is, I'd stretch my hamstrings for a few minutes and I'd take off and run.
That's it?
That's good enough. After the injury and after I then sort of went to the other extreme, was where I really can't do anything, I did do some mobility. So I was doing some stretches, and so that helped, but not to the level that I do it now. Now it's, when I say not to the level, now it's probably a little more focused, and so I've got a purpose for what I'm doing, and I have a better understanding of it. But I think that is essential for my age group. I don't see those that.
Pairing what we would call mobility maintenance, we could call it stretching. It does a lot of things, but you're talking about pairing that along with strength training.
Correct.
Okay.
You really need them both. And of the two, I would say, frankly, I would say strength training is more important.
I would agree.
But the mobility is a nice second place to that. It's sort of the
And I think it just helps in recovery and
Yes.
overall the way that you're feeling.
yeah,
You
it
mentioned
does.
4 hours a week roughly of
Right.
fitness, and that's predominantly strength training or movements
Right.
similar to that. Then how much of the training would then be dedicated towards mobility maintenance?